That's some significance. I missed this party. 40, that's a lot. 40's a lot. I remember being 40. So anyway, make a long story short, tonight's meeting is going to start with a roll call, but then we go right into a public hearing, which should be short-lived, but just so you know what's going on, and then we move into the regular agenda. So with that, Ms. Shepherd, will you call the roll?
Certainly. Tim Slocum.
Here.
Don Walsh.
Here.
David Borowitz.
Present.
Jim Jakes. John Malone.
Here.
Sylvia Nichols.
Here.
Sandy Pavano. Here. Peter Talbot.
Here.
David Belver.
Here.
Quorum is present.
Thank you much. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And since I was handing out birthday platitudes, it's come to my attention that Peter Talbot, a neighbor, by the way, up the street, passed his house several times today. It's his birthday. So Peter, happy birthday. It's
Thank
your
you very
40th, right?
I was going to say, I just wanted to make sure that no one confused me with your
Right.
40-year-old son.
Right. Well, it is interesting.
I've got a couple years on him anyway.
Right. I didn't know that there was another shared birthday in my life. That's terrific. Happy birthday. So with that, we're going to go on to the public hearing, which is the consideration of amendment of $276,000 to the fiscal year 2021-2022 Water Pollution Control Department operating budget. Ms. Shepherd, will you do the call?
Need to read the notice?
Yes, please.
Okay. Town of Cheshire Town Council notice of public hearing, consideration of amendment to fiscal year 2021 to 2022 Water Pollution Control Department WPCD budget. The Town Council of the Town of Cheshire will hold a public hearing at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, September 13th, 2022, in the Town Hall Council Chambers, 84 South Main Street, Cheshire, Connecticut, to consider an amendment of $276,000 to the fiscal year 2021 to 2022 Water Pollution Control Department WPCD operating budget. Is at Cheshire, Connecticut, this 24th day of August 2022.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. So with that, we've called the roll. We've had essentially the reading of the advertised notice. Bottom line is there's a public hearing because we have to switch funds from one budget year to another. It requires a public hearing. That will go on with an explanation from our town manager and finance manager if necessary. So go ahead, Sean, take it away.
All right, I'll be very brief, but the request is for $276,000 for the fiscal 22 WPCD budget. This would increase the overall appropriation from $4,149,648 to $4,425,648. This is due to items that were experienced unfavorable expenditure variances, mainly due to additional overtime from staffing vacancies, the processing of accumulated solids, as well as for equipment and program supplies that were needed to be purchased during the year. The revenue will increase at the same amount, and that revenue is recommended to be taken from WPCD available fund balance, fund equity. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Kimball. Any questions from members of the public? This is a public hearing, so it's your time to ask a question or opine. Any questions? Any opinions? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. With that, we move on to our regular agenda, which begins tonight with public communications. And our first public communication is from Ball and Socket Arts. We're all looking forward to a presentation, a report, whatever update they're prepared to give us tonight. So with that, I see Mr. Bergamo is in the audience. If you'd like to come up to the podium and introduce yourself, your current address. I know you spend most of the time at Ball and Socket, but where you sleep, give us that one.
I think I'm getting my mail at Ball and Socket now. So which address do you want? Ron Bergamo, Jr., 103 Glenbrook Drive, Cheshire, Connecticut. Been here 28 years and enjoying the heck out of our lovely little town. So much so that we're working pretty hard on the Ball and Socket Arts project to see if we can make this a a community arts and entertainment center that we can all enjoy and have some fun at. And if you've driven by there recently, you'll notice that Sweet Claus Ice Cream is open, and she's having a great time over there. I can tell you that her current business volume is, according to her, anywhere from 125 to 175% per day more than it was at the other location. So her business is thriving. She's added employees, and things are going well. So part of our mission was to bring something that would energize the West Main Street area, and I can tell you, based on the foot traffic in that area, it is incredible. The trail and the bicycles and the cars, it's astonishing. So we've been very, very blessed with that. I can also tell you that we're working pretty hard to get our facility open, which will be Building 3, the one directly behind it. That one has undergone some budget problems. As you know, the current state of affairs in the world, everything is more expensive than it used to be as recently as a week ago. So we're fighting some value engineering right now to get it going, but it's going. So we're ready to get that one up and running. We just have to finalize some budget issues that are occurring there. And that'll be our gallery space and our office space. And that'll be, opening that facility will give us our proof of concept. The whole concept with Ball and Socket was community arts and entertainment funded by some tenancy, but presenting arts, entertainment, and enjoyment and enrichment for the community. So most of what we want to offer here is gallery space. Most of what we want to hear is educational space. People's ability to not only enjoy the arts, but become educated in the arts in all of their vast forms. So that's Ball and Socket, but we know we're going to have some tenants because we're a nonprofit. We're not making money here. We want to be able to have an opportunity to keep the lights on. And to that end, we have a Sweet Claude's. We're going to have another tenant in the second floor, and then we'll have some other tenants that'll be mission appropriate retail space. And by that, I mean, they fit our genre. We're not looking to have a clothing store necessarily. We're not looking to have a office space. We're not looking for conventional mall type storefronts. We're looking for maker space. We're looking for educational space, possibly even other nonprofits that want to be part of the educational experience that we can offer at our facility. So as we develop the property, that's where we're going to be heading with it. And I know part of that is servicing the customers that come to our facility. So we're going to have Sweet Claude's for ice cream. We're going to have a food court to support that. We may have some other forms of entertainment, several of which have been entertained, none of which have been solidified at this point. So that's our development plan, and it's moving along very nicely. And I've been stalling till my partner arrives.
Hi, everybody.
You may as well introduce yourself for the
Hi,
record.
I'm Alona Samoji. I am
Address.
0762 Bethany Mountain Road, co-founder, newly named executive director of Ball and Socket Arts.
Which is the next part of what we wanted to talk about at this point. We're in our proving ourselves, growing ourselves, becoming part of the community. And part of what we were talking about is becoming an economic resource, an economic driver in the West Main Street area. And that includes trying to get additional jobs and additional economics brought to the area. Ball and Socket is actually in the process right now of hiring 3 additional people, in addition to putting Alona on board as our executive director. So I thought you'd want to know that we are keeping to our mission of not only bringing economics to the area, but job growth as well. I think that's a pretty important part of what we're doing. So the other feature that is, I think, relevant to the board is that we're working on our south parking lot, which is the parking area that's most adjacent to the rear trail entrance to our property. So right now, as I said, we have a brisk traffic that's coming in from the trail. It's all coming in from the West Main Street side. To that end, we're going to have to add a sidewalk, additional sidewalk that we weren't planning on. So we're going to be working on that. But as we open the back parking lot, with the help of you all here in this room, we're hoping that we can put in 65 additional parking spaces back there with access to the trailhead and a pass-through that would go directly from West Main Street all the way back through to the rear of the property to exit at the rear of the property for vehicular traffic, but would also provide a pedestrian and bicycle way from the front of the property or the rear of the property at the trailhead all the way back through to the front building and Building 2 where Sweet Claude's currently resides. So we've got a plan in place that I think we've been working with Sean and folks on. So we think it's a good plan. We have some issues with the drainage that we're trying to work out and with DEP to make sure we can do the drainage the way we're planning. If you guys have done any drainage work around town with DEP, you know what I'm talking about. So we're almost there with that. And as soon as we finish that up, we'll be able to get started. We are in the process of driving our permits for taking down the Alamo. I know there's some people in the room that would be thrilled to hear that. The Alamo is Building 6, which is in the middle of the back of the parking area, and that we're proposing for the south parking, and has been sort of deemed as non-essential, and therefore it'll go away, and that helps us create that 65 space parking area back there. All the abutters letters have gone out, and we're in the process of our contractors submitting their permits to do what they need to do for that. So the project is moving along, and we're growing, and we're moving as quickly as we possibly can as a nonprofit. This is a difficult era to be working as a nonprofit with rising costs, and every time you raise $1, you really need $1.30. But we're getting there, and we're covering ourselves as we go. Alona, do you have anything you would like to add?
I'm not sure what I missed.
That's okay.
I'll just take field questions.
So with that, I'd be happy to field some questions on the project or dig into any details of parts of it that I mentioned tonight, because I know we were a brief portion of the program. So whatever I can answer for y'all, I'd be happy to do that.
Before I turn it over to my colleagues, Ron, number one, thank you. Alona, thank you. The council knows, and I guess the public does in part, the level of effort that's gone into this. It's been a long time. You could probably tell me the years, but it's got to be at least 7 or 8 years. It's a long time. But I think the public probably doesn't know, and even I need to be reminded, is what a project this really represents, because you really can't get a bank financing until you guys are able to get things remediated, and that's a huge effort. So most of your efforts are involved in securing, I know you've secured a tenant, but prior to that, you had to secure funding to remediate environmental concerns on the property, which haven't gone away. So that's one of your biggest hurdles, I suppose. And I think with that in mind, it kind of explains some of the pace this project takes on.
Well, it does. We've been very fortunate to work with the Brownfield division of the state DECD office. They've been very helpful in not only helping us secure the property, but they've also provided virtually all of the remediation funds that we've used in the property as well. So they've taken a very large stakeholder interest in making this a clean property. By definition, that means that you have to close something called a RCRA, which is a daunting piece of paperwork that takes years to go through and deal with. And we're in the process of doing that. With a current Brownfield Challenge Match grant that we were awarded last January, we've been able to actually raise enough money to meet the challenge that they gave us for the $925,000. And the Brownfield office will actually be supplying, we have a meeting with them in 2 weeks in terms of how to activate those funds. That'll be the last of the interior remediation that we need to do short of lead work. There's one room that has some asbestos in it. We have, some people in town have referred to it as the canals. There's a lot of misunderstanding about those. I've heard things from, it could blow up any minute to you could drown in there. And bottom line is it's a fenced off area that the previous owner decided to do some standalone remediation on his own and dug up the floors. And all that's in there is traditional groundwater. The problem with our site is that the groundwater has been deemed to have VOCs in it. And so it's considered contaminated. The great part about the contamination is that it's manageable. The EPA is working with us to do the testing, and the EPA is working with us towards getting our RCRA worked out. So there, not only is the state involved, but we've got the feds involved as well to try and help us get through the daunting process of getting this to be a clean property. Because as you said, there's not a bank on the property in the world that would touch us with any of this still alive. So we've had to do everything with private funds, which has gone very well. We've raised over $2 million in private funds, and most of that with just in the last 2 years, about 1.5 million of that in the last 2 years. We've raised money from the state. We've been able to work with some ARPA money that we've been awarded, and we've been able to work. We currently have an award that's out of Congress and awaiting a state Senate budget for $625,000 to help us with our sprinkler system in Building 1. And if that gets in, the sprinkler system gives us an opportunity to start dealing with the development of that larger 45,000 square foot facility. So we're chipping away at all of the barriers to development that this has been in front of us, and I think we're getting close. It's rolling now. It has a cadence that you can feel, and I like that part.
And finally, before I do pass it along to my colleagues, and the paving that goes on has a mutual benefit. It's a dual benefit, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. But capping an area with pavement satisfies remediation. There's a dual benefit to a project like that.
The
Clearly.
soil management plan that we've been provided by our LEP Fuss and O'Neill has basically called for the paving of most of the exposed soil. And as long as we haven't disturbed the other soil, there's nothing else that we need to do with it. So putting a parking lot in the back of that property actually is remediation. It's a great form of keeping the public safe and closing up our remediation requirements for the state and feds.
Thank you for that. Any colleagues have a question for Mr. Walsh and then Mr. Talbot?
Thank you. Thanks, Ron and Galona, for all the hard work you've been doing. It's exciting to see it progressing the way it is, and I'm sure the town is happy to see that going. And I know it's probably hard to give us, but is there time frames for like when your building is going to be done, when the next project is going to be done, and how much more funding do you need before you get there? I mean, are we talking 1, 2, 5, 10, 20 years? I don't know.
Depends on which parts you're talking about. There's the near term and then there's the long term. The long term could be a 5 to 7 year kind of a project to finish out the 45,000 square feet. But that's a development by both planning and opportunity. Once we sprinkler the building and we are able to heat the building, and we've already been doing stabilization of the building, we can start doing development on that larger campus building. In the meantime, we're going to be hopefully finishing Building 2 with tenant occupancy for 2023 in full. Our gallery space will have our occupancy in our offices, an open gallery for 2023. And the rear parking will be available in 2023 as well. So right now, the two buildings that are adjacent to Willow Street will be fully operational in 2023, as will the parking facility that's the south parking behind the building furthest down Willow Street. So we'll have both Willow Street entrances open, in addition to the West Main Street entrance open within the next few months.
So there's a glimmer of light there, which is great to see, because I think that's what a lot of people are saying, it's been forever, but it really hasn't. I mean, when you consider what you had to do, and I get that. And I know that one of the issues on that building too was the transformer that has been on back order.
It's still an issue.
Still an issue. Okay.
Yeah,
Just
we're
was
getting
checking on
there.
that. All right.
We have a date for delivery now, so that's
That's
the
good.
That's the good news.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ron and Alona, and to your board and your volunteers, thank you. I know I've said it privately. Now I have the opportunity to say it publicly. Thanks for your persistence, your perseverance, your patience, and your vision on this project. You had the opportunity to take small groups of us through there, and it's just first of all, it's a huge undertaking that you've involved yourself in, but after seeing it firsthand, I think it's everything that you envision and probably more. You know, I know that personally I left energized and invigorated by, you know, what was happening and what will happen there. This really is going to be a very, very special thing for the town to have within its borders. And I can't thank you enough for having the ability to stick with this as long as you have and as long as you will continue to, because I know it's become a, you know, that light at the end of the tunnel now that Sweet Claude's has turned their lights on. And now the dominoes will begin to fall. And I know, as Don mentioned, you know, the time frame is out there, and there's a lot of, you know, hurdles that still need to be crossed. But I can't thank you enough for what you're doing, and this is going to be wonderful for this community. So thank you.
Thank you for your kind words. We're very proud to be part of this project and helping the town grow its West Main Street development.
Ms. Nichols.
Thank you. This is a true testament to volunteerism and the ability of the community to support you, and that is a pleasing thing. What's even more pleasing is that now that I live in the neighborhood, I check out your progress every single day, and it's really entertaining. It keeps me very, very well entertained when I walk my dogs, when I go to, and I'm excited to see all the new things that are happening. Alona, your windows are holding up just fine, and and I counted them, and you're right, you had many more than we know. She did all the
Not all.
finding, well, a lot of the
Did a
finding
lot
of
of
thousands
paper.
of those windows.
Yeah.
So we thank you for that. And as a member of the neighborhood, we appreciate the ice cream. So,
Yeah.
thank
As
you.
long as, you keep walking, right?
You're definitely going to have to keep walking.
Yeah. Thank you, Sylvia.
Well, I don't think there's any more questions, so I guess we're here to get your report and also to continue to wish you the best of luck. And wherever the town can give its support, it will continue to do so. We know we are partners in many ways. Some of it's just ministerial, paperwork and things of that nature, but we're very enthusiastic about what's going on. Love to see what we've been seeing. So keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Every amount of support at any level is very, very welcome. And thank you so much for it. We appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, so we go from one good thing to another good thing. And this is a welcome report from the Sustainable Connecticut team. Sustainable Connecticut was a project brought before the council. It's a few years ago at least. We got on board with it. They've done a not miraculous, but a stupendous job, I think. Many have observed what's been going on. So we thought it was timely that they perhaps give us a little bit of a report in the community interest. So Fiona, thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Fiona Pearson, 100 Strathmore Drive, Cheshire. So thank you again very much for having us here, providing this report to you. And I figured I would just start by just providing some clarifications in terms of, again, who we are and what we're doing. So I'm representing the sustainability team. The sustainability team was appointed by town council to work with Sustainable CT in certifying our town. Now, we're different from the Coalition for Sustainable Cheshire, and I know a lot of people in the community confuse us. The Coalition for Sustainable Cheshire is a nonprofit. It was founded by some of the members of the team and many others with the goal of working with the community to help towards completing some of the action items that are defined by Sustainable CT. So it's a separate entity, but some of those members of the coalition are also members of this team. So I am on the sustainability team. Linda Blackburn over here is on the sustainability team. Jen Dillon is also on the sustainability team, and Karen Schnitzer. And Arnett Talbot is our town municipal liaison to Sustainable CT as well. Former members are Bill Stanley of the Economic Development Commission, and he left the team. I think it was after we received bronze. Soon thereafter, he was starting as president of the Cheshire Land Trust, and so that was taking much of his time. So he resigned from the team at that time, and Doug Noble was also an original member of our team as well. Bill Stanley was replaced by Linda Blackburn, actually, also from the bringing that knowledge regarding economic development. And then Doug Noble recently resigned from our team as well. So we're looking to replace that member, and we've been working with Arnett to identify some folks in town who bring some expertise that would work with us and help us in terms of certifying the town. And so in terms of certifying the town, Sustainable CT identifies 13 different action item areas. And so we work with town leaders, volunteer organizations around town to identify groups that have, or people in town who have completed some of these action items. We received bronze certification back in June of 2021. And at that time, we had to earn 200 points across these multiple action items and complete an equity item. And some of the things that we received points for that first round, everything that Ball and Socket did, actually, the brownfield site remediation, that actually earned the town points. So that's work that was past done, that you all supported, that we received points for, that helped us to earn that bronze certification. Arts Place, and actually Arts Place is unique. We learned through this entire process. There is no other municipality that supports its arts in quite the way that Arts Place does. And we received multiple points, and we were commended by Sustainable CT and recognized across the state for the work that we do and what Arts Place does in our community in terms of contributing to culture and the environment. The Pollinator Pathway, which was already created and underway, is also a project that we received points for that bronze certification. And then for the equity project, we were working locally on a composting project, and we were able to use some of the Sustainable CT funds for that project. So those are things past done that we were able to garner points for to earn that bronze certification. So we were working this last year on silver certification, the next level, which doubled the points. So last time we only had to earn 200 points. This time we had to earn 400. We came up short. August 23rd was the deadline. We were able to garner 335 points that we've submitted and that right now Sustainable CT is reviewing. And we were also able to complete some additional equity projects. Some of the things that we accomplished this last go around, the Youth Environment Coalition that Jen Dillon, one of our members, started, bringing together students from Cheshire Academy, Dodd Middle School, Cheshire High School, working on some of these action items and environmental issues in the community. That afforded us some points this last go around. The affordable housing plan that Mike Glidden put together for our community, that also garnered our community points. And that was something, again, as you probably know, many municipalities across the state did not meet that deadline. Cheshire did, so we are to be commended for that work. Things that we didn't quite get points for yet that we are kind of looking towards, we could get points. I know right now Town Council is hearing on the Ordinance Committee with Commissioner Veliber, the ordinance for a poet laureate. If we get a poet laureate, 15 points right there. We just have to have that in place and then begin to appoint someone. Blue Earth Compost, Linda Blackburn, this last weekend at the Fall Festival, brought Blue Earth Compost to the Fall Festival to introduce composting to our community in terms of how we might integrate composting in our residential pickup or in our schools or in events like the Fall Festival. And then something else Linda Blackburn looked at was CPACE funding in terms of economic development and looking at Green Bank and CPACE, some of the Connecticut property assessed clean energy options that are out there. These are all things that we could potentially look to in the future. But, and these are words of Jen Dillon, right? This first iteration, we look back in terms of bronze certification, right? And we found things that we've done very successfully as a community. Silver, we realized it's time to look forward. And I'm going to be quite honest here. We've done a lot of work. It's quite a lot of work working with town employees, trying to document all of these action items and upload them. But this can't be work that's done by just a small group of volunteers, is what we've come to realize. So I guess I'm here. We've met and we've talked about, in terms of looking forward, best ways to move forward. One of the things that we are recommending is that the town council and our town manager think seriously about, if we are serious as a community, and this is something we just have to decide, if we're serious as a community about the silver certification. And Sustainable CT this year in 2003 is going to, for the first time, be launching its gold certification standards. So communities will be able to attain gold certification. If we're serious about those goals, we are going to really have to invest. And we are recommending at this time that we think about some kind of sustainability coordinator that is housed in town hall, or a resiliency coordinator. We've looked around in different municipalities. Branford actually has a job description. They have a sustainability and compliance officer. This is someone who works with multiple groups, multiple folks in town hall in terms of ensuring that we're addressing some of these issues and making use of some of these resources. And their sustainability and compliance officer works with Department of Public Works. It connects all these dots as Sustainable CT does. It works with Parks and Rec in terms of passive management of open spaces, which I know Parks and Rec has now been given purview of with the leaving of Suzanne Simone. And I will say Suzanne Simone is now in Glastonbury and working with them on some of these issues. So there are other communities we can look to in terms of looking to how they're doing this. But I would just say right now, we have a town hall that runs lean and mean, all right, where we've been very, very fiscally cautious as a community. If we're looking to invest though, and if we're looking to take advantage of funds that are likely to be coming down the way from DEEP, from the federal government with Build Back Better, any of these clean energy plans, we're really going to need to be strategic. And so I think finding someone who can be in town hall, Arnett has been amazing in connecting us with everyone, but we just can't do what we need to do in terms of achieving what we can achieve in this community with the resources that we have. So we are willing as a team to help work with you in terms of researching options. But a team of 3, a team of 4 volunteers, I don't know that I see silver may be possible. Gold will never be possible, but look to see what other possible communities are doing and where resources may lie. So I just open up the floor for questions right now from us.
Thank you, Fiona. Mr. Talbot.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Fiona, thank you. Linda and Jen, thank you as well. So just by way of clarification, you talked about that when the deadline hit in August, we were about, from my quick math, about 65 points short of silver. So will those points that you acquired in that period, do those carry over so that you can apply those to looking to get silver next year, or how does that work?
Okay, yes and no. So an issue we face moving from bronze to silver, for example, this last go around, we did not receive any points in the energy area. Now, the Energy Commission has been incredibly supportive of us and has worked with us. And we've been working with them to begin, for example, benchmarking energy use in all our municipal buildings. That's a huge task. And so they've been working on it, but we haven't quite uploaded all the data. So they were short on a great deal of data. And so we weren't able to seek those points.
Yeah.
But last go around, we did receive points, and we received points because we have LED lighting in all of our parks. But we don't have LED lighting in all our municipal building and school buildings. And so last go around, they said what we submitted last time was good enough for last time, but for this time, it wasn't good enough. And so we would need to have LED lighting in all of our municipal buildings, and we'd have to document that and upload that material to demonstrate that we've met that criteria. So, and what's important here too, I mean, if you look at all of those action items, not all of those action items are appropriate for our community. And that's where someone like a sustainability coordinator, someone who's could work with the town manager, could work with town council to figure out what are some of the items that might be worthwhile. Really, Sustainable CT just provides a roadmap and just ideas for us that we could then look towards. But I think more importantly, what communities are realizing, I think one of the reasons why so many communities have bought into this is that there's money to be had. There is grant money out there. I mean, that's how Ball and Socket has been able to do what they've been able to do. But it's on us to be efficient and to find what we need out there and actually have the resources and the means to apply for some of those grant monies and particularly if we're looking at school modernization right now, I think this is a key time for us to be thinking about someone who's looking at, I know there's been a great deal of talk about energy efficient buildings. They need to be LEED certified. So can we ensure that as we're embarking on some of those big projects, we have someone who's going to make sure that we get the most that is available out there at this moment in time?
And I think you answered my second question already, but just let me make sure. The advantage then to achieving the next, which would be the silver, is the opportunity to have more grant funding and to apply for these things as a silver community, outside of the fact that it shows we're environmentally conscious, we're energy conscious, and we're
Exactly.
forward thinking.
for example, with the research that Linda did with CPACE, the Connecticut Property Assessed Clean Energy, just working with businesses, working with YETA and the Chamber of Commerce, working with new business owners if they're looking to revamp their facilities, these are funds that are available to them and making them aware that these resources are available. So again, someone who could be housed in town hall, who could assist in bringing all these pieces together, kind of connecting these dots and accessing these resources, I think would be highly valuable. And going back, I mean, this is the time to look forward, particularly in this community where we have so many big projects on the horizon. You know, and I've talked with Don Walsh, you know, we've talked about solid waste, and we know with Mira closing, there are big changes that are coming down the line in terms of waste management in this town. So we would rather be proactive, take advantage of the resources that are out there, but we need the resources in town hall to be able to do that.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Walsh.
Thank you. Thanks, Fiona, for that. Yes, we did have several conversations, and I've talked with other people in your group, and there are a lot of great ideas that are coming out of this. Later on, we're going to be joining another group that will help us hopefully become a more sustainable community. In our solid waste committee meetings, we are now discussing how to use the money that we are receiving from the NIP program, roughly $16,000 a year, depending on how many nips are being drunk each year. But right now it's about 16,000. So and I know there are a lot of different ideas, of whether it's composting, whether it's hiring somebody to pick them all up. There's a lot of different things that we are, and we might be leaning on your group to get some ideas. I think it's good because you're out there more. And I will give a little plug that I heard about at the Fall Festival, that on October 5th, there is going to be a recycling talk
Yes.
across the street at First Congregational Church. If you want to talk about that, because I think that's a good idea. For a lot of people don't know what is recyclable and what isn't. And I think that's an important thing, because I know, some people say we should have 4 or 5 different recycle bins at our house. I think some people have trouble enough knowing what goes in the blue one in their own house. So maybe you can just plug that one.
Yes, no, absolutely. That's the Eco Justice Council at First Congregational Church and their Cheshire Creation Care Group. They're an interfaith group that's connected Temple Beth David, First Congregational Church, and St. Peter's Episcopal Church. And so they're hosting that talk on recycling as a way of educating the community, because like you said, we've talked about this and many people just don't even know how to recycle effectively. And that's one of the impediments in terms of that particular issue in our community. And I guess one more thing I would add is that there are groups that have benefited from some of the fundraising. One of the things that when we talked to you the first time, and the coalition, when we talked to you about Sustainable CT and registering our town, was access to Sustainable CT funds. And so there have been several, the Pollinator Pathway, for example, this last May was able to crowdsource fund in the community $8,000, and Sustainable CT matched that $8,000. And so now they have $16,000. And so what they're doing, all the work they're doing on Lock 12 and over on West Main, over by Ball and Socket with the pollinator gardens, that was all crowdsourced funded and provided by Sustainable CT. And I know Nicholas here is a Boy Scout in town who's been looking to do a sign project on the linear trail. And again, they've been looking to use Sustainable CT to crowdsource fund and then have Sustainable CT match those funds. And so that way, again, these are coming from the community, which I think is in the spirit of. So we've seen groups in town take advantage of some of those Sustainable CT funds.
Mr. Mahal.
Just very briefly, Fiona, thank you very much for your hard work and the committee's hard work. But also, and I believe in regardless of whether we get funding or we get points or we get certification, doing the right things for the right reasons is all important. And this is a reminder of what are the right things. So it's very helpful that way. More importantly, I just want to thank you for this presentation tonight. It was just perfect in terms of giving us a reasonable amount of background and a specific ask. And it's not always that we get something so clear and concise. So thank you very much for doing it that way. And it makes it easier for us to be helpful when we don't know exactly what you need.
I spend a lot of time in meetings. You're welcome.
Thank you.
And I brought just copies of the Branford job description in terms of what are the expectations of this person. So I'm just going to leave these with Noel, and anyone who's interested, that's just available. But you can always look at their website. But I thought it was very interesting. It provides one roadmap. Obviously, there are things that would not fit in our community, but it just provides some ideas moving forward.
Fiona, I had two questions for you, if I may. One was, in your initial introduction, you distanced yourself from that other organization.
No,
So
not
did-
distanced,
No,
but
no, no,
just-
and I,
yeah.
distinguished was the
Distinguished.
word. And I think that's important because it is an area of confusion, but insofar as those nonprofits, they're people that come from different nonprofits, they work together.
Yes.
And as I recall, when this was introduced to the council for consideration, one of the big things in all of this was that some of the town's nonprofits could avail themselves of funding that was available if they got involved in some of these targeted types of projects, which obviously help us achieve bronze and silver status. So how do you mesh with all of that? I mean, you mentioned some crowd,
Right.
there's terms here I'm not quite as
Yeah.
familiar with, not because I have white hair, just because I'm not. And so if you could just bring a little more fulsome understanding for
Absolutely,
me.
yes. No, so the funding itself comes from Sustainable CT. So that does not come from our town, that does not come from the coalition, that is Sustainable CT, that is their vehicle. And it's a way of supporting towns on projects that will meet some of those action items. So groups that have availed from that, the Pollinator Pathway has availed of those resources for their project. Boy Scouts is looking to avail themselves of those resources. High school students, I know that Tom Lewalk at the high school worked with some students, and so there are some signs actually in the Butterfly West that some students developed with QR codes, and they crowdsource funding basically means, because Sustainable CT wants to see that this is not just an individual's project or just a small group's project, but this is something that's supported by the larger community. And so Sustainable CT requires that groups who want to avail themselves of these funds must first find a project that is some way aligned with their vision, their mission, their action items. And then secondly, the group needs to show that the community is supportive. And so they need to have people give to that project just of their own, donate to that project, and then Sustainable CT. And they have to have a minimum number of people who will donate. So you can't just have 3 big donors in town give money. It has to be, I forget what the minimum number is, but at least like 40 people or 40 different individuals or 30 different individuals must donate. So you need to demonstrate community support, not just an individual or small group support.
And my second question had to do with, what did it have to do with? I did have a second question. That's always a problem. Explains the white hair.
Sympathetic.
Well, you've done a great job. We're most appreciative. Oh, I know what it was. It has to do with the achievement, the attainment to get to the silver.
Yes.
Now, it could take the town years to replace LED lighting. I mean, it truly
Yes.
could. So as we're on that snail's pace, which we make efforts to be on any snail's pace, because that's what it takes to repave 150 miles of roads. You don't do it in 1 year.
Right.
And you don't replace all the old lights in 1 year.
Right.
So what credit, if any, do you get for, doing your best? I know you
Right.
can, everybody gets an A, so
Right.
what does the town get?
Well, actually, and what we were really working on in the energy section, and I invite any of you to look at the Sustainable CT website, look at the action items. They're all publicly available. But the LED lighting was one, and we thought that was an easy one for us to start with. But the benchmarking is really the big one, right? And that's the one that's actually most important for the town that we could collectively learn the most from. And so that's what we really focused on this last go around with the Energy Commission. And so they worked with someone from UConn who's connected to Sustainable CT to try to access all that data and upload all that data, but they just weren't able to do that in time. So if we were to prioritize, I mean, that's something as a community we have to decide. And that's where I would say this sustainability coordinator could identify what are the action items that make the most sense for a community like Cheshire. And we can look to other communities to see, and they do have like success stories. So you can look to see, and so we tend to look when we're looking at trying to fulfill action items, what Glastonbury's done, what Guilford's done, what Branford has done. So we try to look at peer communities to see what they're doing and emulate if that makes sense for us, basically.
And then finally, because there are a number of committees of the council, as you know, there's environment, there's energy, there's any number of beautification. To what extent has there been any interplay, conversation? How engaged have you been able to be with these committees?
Very.
Okay,
So
that's
I've met
important
with
to
the
know.
Energy, yes, very early on, I met with the Energy Commission. So my contact there, Rich Augurick and Dan Knudsen have been my contacts there. The Environment Commission, 2 members of our sustainability team happen to be on the Environment Commission, Landa Blackburn and Karen Schnitzer. Parks and I've talked with John Galwak about management of open spaces. We're going to have to revise our plan of conservation and development in the next few years. So that is something that the sustainability coordinator could work with, and bringing these commissions together. And that's basically, we have had to work with all these commissions. That's the only way you can succeed. But again, as a team of volunteers, we can only go to so many different meetings as well. And so to have someone in town hall who really can kind of focus on these efforts, but connect these dots, like I said, because I think there's more. Like with the school project coming up, I feel there's a great deal of opportunity. And that's something specifically where this person could really help us in terms of making sure that we're taking advantage of some of what Sustainable CT has to offer, what the state has to offer, what the federal government has to offer, and combine and synergize in that way.
I think as a council, for example, we would tend to, lean on energy, for example, as a
Right.
classic example in a project like that at some point down the road. Can't talk about it a whole lot. We're not allowed to. But the bottom line, at least the synergies are there.
Yes.
You just feel it's just more difficult for just a couple of volunteers is the bottom
Right.
line.
We need someone who can really kind of connect the dots and bring this all together.
Right.
In a way, just because we can only, as volunteers, we only have so much. I can't tell you how many times I've met with different folks in town hall, right, to work on some of these issues. And we've met regularly with Andrew Martelli. I've met with Mike Glidden, met with George Nwatney. So we meet with these folks, but they're busy too. And so if there were someone, beyond Arnett is incredibly busy. And so if there's someone beyond, just Arnett or George or Mike or Andrew who can bring all these forces together. And like I said, I think looking at some of what other towns are doing already would be really, really helpful at this moment in time.
Well, I like to think that's why we have a good town manager.
Yes.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Fiona. It's been a wonderful presentation. It's been very illuminating for all of us up here. And I thank you for your time and your efforts.
Thank you.
Okay, we now come to a presentation from the police department on a new data dashboard. There's a lot of whiz-bang cool things going on. And with that, Chief is going to come up. He's going to introduce us to this project. And we're very excited about this.
We want to stand out there and not look at it.
Thank you.
I know, I saw, I got a screenshot.
Just by way of introduction, I don't know that any of you have had the opportunity to meet Brian Montoya. So you remember the council
Chief, you want to grab the microphone?
projecting.
So Brian is the Public Safety Network Administrator that the council graciously allowed us to change the job description several years ago, and he's been on board with us for about a year now. Splits time between the police department and the fire department. One of the things that we've been working on for some time that happened to coincide very nicely with the goals and objectives that you set for the town manager this year is, as I'm sure you've all heard, transparency is kind of a big thing in law enforcement right now. Being transparent, letting people know what we're doing, and to the extent that we can do that while still protecting, victims and other confidential information that we have. This is our effort at doing this. So what we're going to do here is get this up on our website. So we're hoping that it's something that members of the council will be able to direct their constituents to at times. I know sometimes you get some calls that are probably quite routine about, hey, do you know what happened here? Or do you know how many car break-ins we've had? All this information will be, publicly available right on our website. Again, we're hoping that, it's solely an effort to be transparent with members of the community who have, unfortunately over the last couple of years, as you all know, we've had this spike in, first it was car break-ins, people's unlocked cars in their driveways in the middle of the night, and it's kind of morphed a little bit from there. We've had some years where we've had a big spike in stolen cars, and then again, as almost everybody knows from just paying attention to the news, we've been hit with catalytic converter thefts a lot over the course of the last, say, 18 months or so. But on top of that, we've had there's other information that people will be able to look at on this portal, and that will give them a lot of information about what the police department does. You'll find out when we go through our presentation here that the number one call by far every year that the police department engages in is what we call location checks. So that's just a proactive effort by the police department or by an individual police officer to do exactly what it sounds like, a location check. So when you're at one of the parks on a summer day and you see an officer drive through the parking lot, that's a location check. Officers checking on businesses on the midnight shift, all of that. And again, it's by far our number one call for service. But it also shows that we go to a lot of medical calls. We do a lot of traffic enforcement. You have to get pretty far down the list of things that we do before you find an actual crime, because as everybody knows, we're a very safe community. So again, Brian has been the driving force behind this. We were lucky enough that he was ready to retire from the Meriden Police Department, where he served for over 20 years, retired as a captain. But this has been his forte for that whole time, IT related stuff. And again, this is our effort at transparency, at meeting that goal. And again, I'm going to let Brian walk through some stuff now. And if you have any questions as we're going along, just kind of pop them out, but we'll obviously take questions at the end too. So, Brian.
Thank you, Chief. Good evening, everyone. So as Chief Dreyfus has indicated, this was a task to create a dashboard of sorts where the citizens can access data about the police department and different types of calls and offenses and all sorts of different things. So this will end up being on the website. Right now it's working out of a program that lets us, basically build this. But once we post to this website, it'll look just like this, and it'll be a link right off the police department site, off of the town's website. And really it's broken down into 6 pages. On the left-hand side, you'll see we have calls for service, offenses, crime trends, the police blotter, stolen vehicle lists, and stolen vehicle trends. So the first thing you'll see is this total number here of 27,216. That's the current calls for service for the year 2022. And you'll see all of the middle area here, the calls for service by month, and then at the bottom by days of the week. So this gives us an idea of how many calls we're handling at any day and, during every month of the year. And on the right hand side, we have a map with all of our address points or our points for all the data. If we break this down, you'll see we basically go back 3 years. So we can look at 2021, and then we can go back and look at 2020. So we can compare calls and data across 3 years. And we see very similar numbers, give or take. And then we can see trends and how much things increase and decrease. If we decide to look at a specific call for service on the left-hand side, we can scroll down through any of the ones we want. If we wanted to look at theft of catalytic converters, we can look at that and we can see what months we're having more stolen, what days of the week, and kind of see generally where they are in the town. And we can do this with any of the different types of offenses. We can do this with theft from motor vehicle, and we can compare those again across different years. So we can see sort of like that. And then if we wanted to see specifically, we can also grab multiples. So if we wanted to see all of our thefts that had to do with motor vehicle and CAT converters and like this, we can break them and add them all together. So these are offenses. These are calls for service offenses. So these are things that get called into the police department. All right. The next tab down will be the offenses. And for 2022, you'll see motor vehicle theft. These will tell us we have a total offense count. Offense counts and these offenses are FBI. These are FBI codes. So they code all crimes a certain way. So in this particular one, we're looking at motor vehicle thefts. We had 19 total for 2022, and 2 were cleared by arrest. If we go back and look at 2021, we can see the totals. We can see the age of the offenders that were arrested, what age range they were in. Again, offensive by month and by days of the week down here. So we're breaking this one offense down to that. And again, we can pick any of the offenses we wanted to see. Shopliftings, and we can say, well, we want to see 2022s. And again, we have all the data, our points, crime trends. This is for all over here. You'll see where it says we want to pick something specific. So if we want to look again at thefts from vehicle, this gives us the last 3 years. And we can see down here, we went from 73 down to 41, down to 35 currently. And we graph that over here. And then we have a police blotter. And again, we can pick year and call types. And this is what the chief was talking about. This is basically all calls. So over here, you can see in this, these are our top 10. And the location checks are our top, with 14,271 of the total of calls for service we have are location checks. And then these are motor vehicle stops would be the next biggest one. Medical assists, radar. We have some supplement reports, burglar alarms, and then some in-house fingerprinting, accidents, selective enforcement, and alarms. So you'll see that with all these in here, there's really no actual crimes in this top 10 list. Again, reiterating the chief with we're a safe community. And then we have a stolen vehicle list for 2022. This gives us a list, not with any specific address. They're just the streets that these were stolen from. And then the dates, times, case numbers, and then the make, model, and vehicle type. So we can see how many vehicles we had stolen in 2022 compared to 2021, compared to 2020. Back to here. And then the last one is the stolen vehicle trends. And this tells us the last 3 years. In 2020, we had 15, 2021, 39, and 2022, we're at 19. And then this gives us a breakdown of the type of vehicles. Jeeps are the #1 stolen vehicle in the town at 23. And then they go right down the list to the different makes and models. And we just show a chart here that kind of gives us a little bit of an idea of the rise and fall of the different stolen motor vehicles. So these 6 tabs make up all of the information, and there's a lot you can gather from this and a lot of things you can look up on your own. People like to play around with data and explore it, and this is one of the things they can do and can come in and look at all the different types of calls for service and offenses. So.
Brian, on that screen, and I noticed it on one of the other things you had up may have been the catalytic converters.
Mm-hmm.
Along Route 10 there towards go back to that, whatever other one you just had.
This one here? Oh, you're talking about.
Yeah. what I'm looking at is down at the bottom of Route 10, there was a larger circle, larger
Correct.
green circle.
Yep.
What does that indicate as opposed to the normal green circles?
So when you look at, let's just actually go ahead and do that. We'll bring theft from cats up here. So you see these larger
Yes.
circles here. These larger circles means there's more than one incident in that location.
Okay.
So this one here, you'll see there's three
Three.
incident reporting counts at that one. And then down here, there's three. And then the smaller circles are just one. And this one over here is a little bigger, but it's not quite as big as the larger
Got
one.
it.
So it's two.
So it's multiple at the same location.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Brian, on that point, I think if earlier we had looked at, I think it was medical calls. That was one that might have a large circle down in the south end, for instance.
I believe
with
you're right.
Elon Park or
So
something.
here's our medical assists. Those ones we don't have. Was it medical?
It may not have been, but to your point, it's when there's multiple in an area.
I think it was motor vehicles. Yes. These are motor vehicle stops. You'll see there's multiples in a lot of areas. And you can look, and when you look at motor vehicle stop, you can see Route 10 right down, and then your main thoroughways through there where a lot of the motor vehicle stops and accidents all occur. So that's where the majority of the enforcement action is.
Just a word about the actual dots that we put on the map, just to anticipate a question that you might get. It's not a specific address. Like if somebody blows this up, it won't land on a certain house, because we're trying to keep the data somewhat anonymous, right? It should be in the general area where the call for service came in, but we didn't want to give people a tool where they can, where it's like, oh, I saw an ambulance at my neighbor's house. Let me zone in and find out what was going on there. So it kind of gives a general vicinity. It's done by latitude and longitude, but it won't give you a specific house. So, I could anticipate that being a concern, for a resident, depending on what the nature of the call for service is there. So, again, it's like any other, piece of data like this. People can get on the website and play around with it. They can't break it. So I would encourage, members of the public, if they're interested, to go on and play around with it. If they have any questions, they can give us a call and we can kind of walk them through it. But again, it's an effort for us to be transparent and to maybe, in this, as generations get younger and younger, people expect to have this information available to them. They don't expect to have to get in their car and drive to 500 Highland Avenue and ask specific questions or send us emails. They want to be able to look at it themselves. So again, we're hoping that this is an effort, on our part to make that work. And again, I think people will be, it gives, certainly, I hope, gives an indication to the residents about exactly what it is that we're doing out there with, with our time and our efforts to keep the community safe. So.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Brian. That's really exciting to see this. I like to look at the monthly reports that you give us in our packets each time, but this is really going to be good. Now, do you foresee this morphing into more where people might be able to go through a secure system to get their accident reports or other reports that they can get? Or do they still have to go to 500 Highland Avenue to get that stuff?
Accident reports, we already contract with a third-party vendor. We just started, was it July 1st? Yeah, July 1st, where everybody who's involved in a motor vehicle accident now gets a little sticker that has the name of the company that they can go on. Now it costs more, right? It's a third party, they're making money off it, but nonetheless, people can do that now. Accident reports, if you want to just pay the 50 cents a page, you go up to Highland Avenue. The accident report now I think is 9 pages though. So, what used to cost you $1 costs you $4.50 now. There's enough information on here for people to narrow down what it is that they want from us. But because of there would be a lot of information, there is still a lot of information that we deal with that is confidential. Domestic violence victims, obviously sexual assault victims. A lot of that information is confidential. And so I'm not sure that we're not at the point now where the the records management system can identify reports that it would be okay to release to anybody who asked. So, but again, the police blotter that Brian showed a little while ago does have case numbers on it. So, if you really wanted to know, what had happened down the street from you, the police were there 3 times over a weekend or something like that, you can find the information, get the case numbers. You can call and ask the folks in records if there's a public record available of that. And again, you may not be able to get the police report, but you'd be able to know that we responded, twice on a noise complaint and once on an assault or something like that. But again, getting to the point where you can just click on a report here and print it out at home, we're not there yet, just because of the nature of the information that in many times we're collecting. Somebody would have to review it now to make sure that there was no protected information in that call.
Chief, I think this just psychologically is good to see, because looking at this and seeing that over a course of a year, your department responds to 35,000 or 33,000, or up till this time in 2022, it's been 27,000 or whatever the numbers are, is amazing. I'm not sure that all of our residents always recognize the fact that you are busy.
Yeah.
And I think psychologically that says, wow, these guys must be really busy. No wonder they can't be on my street every minute of every day.
Yeah.
And
Again, we're trying to provide enough information so people don't, I don't want somebody to look, a new resident, somebody living in Iowa or something like that, saying they're going to move to Cheshire. Oh my God, 27,000 calls for service. Again, a lot of those are officer initiated activities, including location checks, as you saw, it was by far the biggest one. But again, there's enough ways for people to look at this information and answer that question themselves just by looking there. So
to realize that by and large, they're not major crimes that
Right.
we're dealing with. And that is reassuring, that there's hardly anything there that would be.
yeah, and again, look, our biggest crime issue continues to be the thefts from the motor vehicles, which is annoying and a nuisance, and can escalate too, as we've seen around the state. But again, that overall number is relatively small, and I think that there's enough ways for people to look at that in this information and discover that.
Chief, I appreciate the effort you and Brian have brought forth to us, so we know what's going on, and mostly so the folks at home know what's going on. It's also very valuable. But just to reiterate, when was the time frame you thought this would be live for the public to actually access? I mean, 30 days, 15 days?
Yeah, we're hoping next week.
So you're right on the cusp here.
Yeah, we
Okay.
should be. Yeah,
That's great.
There's just one or two little
Sure.
things to work out about, it works in the training environment. Yeah. And Noelle's going to put it up next week. I think she
Well,
just promised.
The other
yeah.
interesting thing I noticed was it appears as though in general, everybody gets back to work on Monday, including the crooks.
Yeah.
Sunday's a lighter day and it loads up a little on Monday. I know the domestics occurred on the weekend and they were tired on Monday, but in general, looks like Monday can be a pretty big trend for whatever. Now, some of that would be overweighted by the preparedness of the police to make their location calls. So they're also up and ready on Monday as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, I think the good thing about, like, when we were looking at it, along the way, as we've been kind of deciding what we're going to put up here, you've often heard me come when we're, in response to the motor vehicle thefts and the thefts from vehicles. When you look at them on the map and you see the days of the week, it's all over the place. Like, I know I've often told you, if I could put 3 guys on overtime on a particular shift, hoping to catch somebody, when you start looking at it, you understand why you can't. And then when you map it too, and you see that there's one here and then there's one over there, and you realize that, it's very, very hit or miss. But yeah, there's some, again, some trends here, like that almost jumps out of the page at you. But then when you go to the next, or last year, they could have been the same crime category, a completely different day led the way. So, it's again, there's enough information here, I think, that people will be pleased with what it is. And, one of the things that, again, if you look at the for example, the accident data, and then overlay it with the motor vehicle enforcement, we hope to see a correlation there, right? You can see, as we already know, the vast majority of our motor vehicle accidents happen on four out of the top 5 locations are the state roadways. The other one is Peck. And hopefully, if you overlay that with motor vehicle enforcement, you'll see that that's where we're concentrating our efforts. So we do try to be responsive to complaints from neighbors about speeding. And again, we don't ignore that. We never tell anybody, well, there haven't been any accidents there, so we're not going to do it there. But again, we try to concentrate on where the accidents are happening. You can see that it's like a dividing line right down the middle of town there, Route 10, from one end to the other. I think, most of those accidents are low speed rear enders. The analysis indicates that, but again, you can almost just look at it and see, well, okay, there's 10 and there's 6870 and Waterbury Road. And, so again, and look, the beauty of this is that we can tweak it as we go along. If somebody decides that we need, there's more information or a greater depth to it, we can certainly consider that. Again, we've been very conscious to not put, when you saw the police blotter, it just gives the street, it doesn't give the number. And again, the dots do not correlate to a specific residential address. Like you couldn't blow this up, all the way and find, okay, oh, that's 123 Main Street. I know that house. It's just not designed like that, to protect people's privacy. So.
Well, thank you very much. I don't think there's any more questions for you guys, so I'm going to ask that the curtain be raised.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we're still in council chambers despite those public communications. It's all good. We're down to D, which is public comments other than what was presented tonight and exclusive of anything that's already coming up on the agenda. Is there any member of the public that has anything to advance to us? Okay, well, I'm going to move then into the regular part of our agenda, which starts with the approval of minutes. The correction to minutes of June 14, 2022 Town Council meeting minutes and August 9, 2022 Town Council meeting minutes and minutes of August 23, 2022. Motion, please. Mr. Talbot, thank you. Second. Ms. Pavano, we have a second. Any questions, comments? I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. We now move to consent. Mr. Burry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution 091322-1, consent calendar for September 13, 2022.
Thank you. We have a motion. We have a second. Thank you, Mr. Jenks. Typically, no discussion on consent. So with that, there is none, I presume. I'll call for a vote on that. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Items moved from consent. There were none. We moved to old business. These have been on the agenda for some time, so they remain in case something comes up. A school modernization update. There are no updates. We're in the quiet period, so council won't generally bloviate about any of this stuff anyway. Not to say we couldn't, but we're not. We have nothing to report. So with that,
Mr. Chairman, if I just could, maybe just an opportunity to remind folks they could volunteer for the school building committee that we have
that's
updated
an
applications
excellent-
till October
thank
3rd.
you. That is excellent. That is true. And with that, Sean, it's probably safe to submit the fact that we have received some applications. It's continuing to be advertised through the end of this month,
Yep, till October 3rd.
October 3rd. And then basically what Sean's speaking to is the town has to create a building committee that would be prepared, should a referendum succeed, to jump on the hiring of an architect and managing a project, which is a multi-year effort. So that's what he speaks to. So thank you for that, Sean. Very good report. With that, we'll move on to the Bartlett Park South update. With that, I will ask for John Mylone and Sean to bring us up to speed in what order or however you'd like to do so. Council appreciates your efforts.
Sean, did you want to go first? Do you want me to just go right ahead?
Why don't you go ahead?
So the project design is proceeding quite well. And the handout that we just provided is an illustration of the original rendering for the referendum approved project from November of 21, and a rendering of the current plan as the design has progressed. We can report that the design has progressed quite well. It's gone through the regulatory process, receiving both the Inland Wetlands Commission approval and last night Planning and Zoning Commission approval. So it's a little bit ahead of schedule from a design standpoint. We still need one other approval, non-local approval, which is the from the state of Connecticut for the traffic generation onto Route 10. That will take some time, but hopefully will be done before year end. If everything goes well, it should be handled administratively, which will allow us to continue to work with the consultant to proceed with the design and be ready to go out to bid around year end and maybe early next year. So one of the key things we're working on now is the consultant's done a very good job in trying to focus on preparing a design that represents the expectations of the town as a quality project and is as efficient as possible, because we know that construction costs have increased dramatically, and we're always concerned about trying to bring the project in within budget. We're going to be working with the council committee, David, Peter, myself, and the town staff, along with Sean. We'll continue to work with the consultant, focus on that over the next couple of months to make sure that we've got the project in a place where we will have a successful outcome, recognizing that the town's referendum included design fees and construction contingencies, which are dramatically less when you back those out than the referendum number. So we don't have as much to work with in terms of construction as you might say, as you might expect, because you see a referendum at a certain number. It's dramatically less. With that, Sean, you want to add anything?
No, just to, I think you covered everything very well. I think I did attend last night's Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. They discussed this item for about hour and a half. A lot of great questions from the commission and from the public, but I think all were answered very well and obviously to everyone's satisfaction with respect to the approval. I think the one last item that is certainly garnering a lot of attention for us to try to get right and make sure we have budget to afford and ultimately to pick the right design is the band shell area itself. So, be on the lookout for more conversation with respect to that and recommendations to hopefully really design, if possible in the budget, some signature piece there. That's really the primary vertical piece of this whole project, if you think about it, and really a showcase for this project. So we've had a lot of recent meetings really just devoted to that conversation alone. So more to come on some ideas and some options for the band shell coming soon.
Well, I guess the only thing hanging out there for me and probably most of the public is just an approximate timeline. I think it's always good to sort of pound down that we're doing well, as you mentioned, but what the anticipated completion dates are, what the rub could be, how it could impact Fall Festival next year, things of those nature that I think we need to really begin to, make known as we move along. So is there anything to say about that?
Yeah, as I said, I think the consultant's staying on target. If everything continues to move as planned, we should be able to put the project out to bid early next year, right after the first of the year, which means bids would come in and construction could commence in the early spring of next year. It will probably be a project that takes you through a winter shutdown, so I don't see a completion unless everything is perfect until the spring or early summer of the following year.
I think that's good to know. We don't want to overpromise, so we don't want to sell anybody short. So it's good to know that it's a ways. Everything just takes forever. We take forever going through this. All the machinations of approval and then the voters and everything else. We're all just complicit in this act of tortured slowness. But above and beyond that, anything else for our colleagues? Thank you for the report, John and Sean. Okay, I'd like to move on to new business, which begins with A, the acceptance and appropriation of $15,000 donation from the John G. Martin Foundation to be used for the purchase of drones for the fire department. Mr. Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution Number 091322-2. Be it resolved that the Town Council accepts and appropriates a $15,000 donation from the John G. Martin Foundation to be used for the purchase of drones for the fire department.
Thank you for the motion. Thank you for the second, Mr. Talbot. And with that, I know we should have Mr. Lohman in the room. He generally shows up to, so we can look a gift horse in the mouth.
Love giving money away.
I know. You're the best, John.
Good evening and thank you. My name is Frank Lohman, 17 Stonegate Circle, Cheshire, 44-year resident of Cheshire. And thank you for listening to me tonight. About a year ago, I had the privilege of giving the Chief Dreif and his department $15,000 to buy a drone. It wasn't too soon thereafter that I heard from my good friend, Chief Kasner, we don't have a drone. We don't have a drone. I don't have a drone. Jack, you got the prettiest sign in town. We don't have a drone. So I'm here tonight to correct that oversight on my part and to give my good friend Chief Kasner and his assistant chief, Danny Ford, $15,000 to buy a drone. For those of you who made the Fall Festival, you may have known that the police department drone was out there, flying 700 feet above the field and landing on a piece of paper about that big in a second. Boom, right down. So that project is pretty much underway, thanks to Chief Dreif and Lieutenant Mike Durkee and Brian Schechter, Sergeant Brian Schechter. So now it's their turn, and they're going to follow footsteps with the police department in buying equipment. And they've already had a joint educational 8-hour session at the police department, which I was happy to see that the police department invited the fire department to use their fire department facilities to have the lesson. But I think they're pretty well now ready to be certified as pilots of drones. So I'm excited about this. I think it's a great project. I think it'll work pretty much in line with public safety, which I do have a small interest in. So I think that it's a fun thing to do tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. And with that, I see the excited fire chiefs really just
Yeah, he's been sitting there
want to
twiddling his
grasp at
thumbs.
your wallet. And so here they are. Jack, you want to say something? And Dan, I'm sure you want to follow on.
I'm quiet like a gazelle. I just want to take a minute to thank Frank. We wouldn't be able to do this if it wasn't for them, and it wasn't for some of the generous people we have. This is stuff that we wouldn't have. I didn't bring a presentation, but I did bring a dog. So I win, Neil.
A beautiful dog with hair.
But I just hope you guys appreciate what the Martin Foundation does for us as a town, because it certainly makes a huge difference.
No,
So thank you, Mr. Lohman and the foundation.
You're very, very welcome, Chief.
Thank you. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
This, by the way, is Annie Grace.
Andy Grace.
Beautiful.
Very nice.
He's almost as pretty as my golden doodle.
Well, thank you for that. I know we've done a lot of conversation, but we do have to vote on this. So before you leave, you might want to know if we accept it.
I dare you to vote it down.
Okay. So with that, I will call for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Aha, no opposition, Frank. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. We now move to discussion and motion before us on the placement of non-municipal signage on town property. With that, Mr. Veliver, I would ask that you enter the motion, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved, the Town Council adopts Resolution 091322-3. Be it resolved, the Town Council hereby adopts a temporary moratorium on the placement or installation of non-municipal signage on town property, including parks and open space, while the policy or ordinance is researched and developed. The moratorium shall expire on September 20th, 2023, unless rescinded earlier by the Town Council.
We have a motion before us. May I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Herein begins the discussion. What do we know and why are we doing this? Would you like me to speak to that?
Sure, if you could.
That's fine. I believe we have an audience. I could be wrong. I haven't met you, Nicholas Tipner. Nice to meet you. It's a pleasure, honestly, it is. But before us is a motion on a moratorium, simply put, because of a rather ambitious and wonderful seeming project that was put before Park and Rec and for approval. Its scope and just everything in general has arisen to the point where we recognize that we really don't have any policies in place for signage on town properties. It was certainly my thinking that we shouldn't be doing things ad hoc, regardless of merit. And all the considerations associated with it. And we shouldn't have boards and commissions that enter into all of this with not all the tools they need, so that they can act in a way that is deemed appropriate or that they're comfortable with. So with that, we've advanced this motion. Now, because you have joined us, I am not asking for a presentation on the project. I received a wonderful communication from you this morning, for which I did send you a reply. I basically stated what's going on. And I indicated that the process before us may take 4 to 6 weeks, could take longer. There's no attempt in any of this to do anything but to set what has to be in motion in my estimation on the council. We've yet to vote on this topic, but that's essentially it. With that in mind, I know it's been a long effort for you. You began this sometime. I became aware of it on Monday of last week. Yeah, I'll continue talking, but briefly, just to give a little background. But because of that, it just seemed as though there was levels of uncertainty with the scope and span of the project and what could come with it. Having read minutes and things of that nature, that's where we are now. So with that, I invite you to introduce yourself. However, we are not deliberating over the efficacy, appropriateness, or enthusiasm for your project. So thank you for your time. Go ahead and speak.
My name is Nicholas Tipner. At 100 Lansdowne Lane. So I'm a Life Scout in Troop 51. We work out of, our troop is based at Chapman School. And as some of you may know, a Life Scout is the rank below Eagle. And in order to attain Eagle, one must complete an Eagle project. And an Eagle project is a project that a scout does with the help of his troop to try and improve the community he lives in, and really create a project and put a project in place that improves the area and the lives of the people around him. So I'd say about 7 or 8 months ago, my family and I were on vacation, and we saw this path on a trail, and it was my grandfather and I, my parents, my siblings, and some cousins, and we loved this path, and this path was the path of evolution. So it was over a stretch of trail, and essentially, I'm not going to go right into, but the path of evolution is a stretch of trail where there are boards that kind of show or signify the milestones of evolution. So the trail or the path would start at a certain point, and then for our proposal, every foot would be 520,000 years. So our project kind of puts into perspective the length of time that went into evolution happening on our Earth. So it begins with the formation of our Earth, and then ends with kind of the modern humans. And this is kind of shown or kind of in my project. So
Well, thank you for that.
thank you.
And it's an ambitious project, which I know you've put a lot of time and effort and energy into. However, I hadn't known, nor did any member of the council really, how much time you'd already put into it before it got to our ears. So with that, we have a motion before us. We've had a little background on a subject. Of course, there's all kinds of reasons to look at this beyond. Is there any comments, questions, Mr. Bowery?
Just a question. As a longtime scout leader and Troop 92 PAC committee, troop committee chairman, I signed about 36 Eagle Scouts. So congratulations on getting this far along. And do you have a backup plan?
Not at the moment.
Okay, when do you turn 18?
May 1st.
Okay. Your group will help you get a backup plan. If not, we'll also help make sure that you get a backup plan if this doesn't work. When I first heard this, and it's all just happened recently, my scout side said, "Oh, come on, let's this happen." Then I realized, we're elected by the town to be guardians and stewards of the town property, and I would be very nervous about allowing one that had such an effect on the property if we didn't have a plan for how others might happen. So, well, I really feel for you, and I'm sure you'll get a backup plan because there's all good scout leaders that you're prepared and they're prepared and they'll help you choose something. And I wish you the best with this, but it's probably not going to work here because you were ahead of your time, and that's a good thing. And also realize, make sure your merit badge counselor for public speaking gives you credit for this because you did very well to come up here.
Yeah, I presented to many commission meetings too. So thank you.
And the other thing I wanted to just let you know, the town does completely appreciate the efforts of a lot of Eagle Scouts that have done projects on town properties, including the sign at Lock 12 Park, which was an Eagle Scout project. And I think the town's had a hand in restoring that over time. But again, I mean, some pretty grand things can be done, and we've thanked many an Eagle Scout for doing good deeds to benefit the community. So, it's our view, you bring it on. It's not something we're trying to discourage. That's all hard to can. I understand. This is a disappointment, certainly. But nonetheless, it's a thoughtful process that must be taken.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments or furtherance before I call for a vote on this? Okay. So I will call for the vote on the motion before us. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We'll keep you posted.
Thank you.
Our meetings are public, whether it's in subcommittee or not. You're encouraged as any member of the public to have input on this. And once it comes back to the council, in whatever duration time it takes, there is always a public hearing on the matter. We had a public hearing this morning before this meeting started on a very dull and mundane sort of subject, which no one showed up for, and it didn't much matter, I guess, but we had to do it legally. This will have import for you and maybe for others, so feel free. It'll be announced and publicly noticed. Thank you.
Thank you.
This along to C, which is a call for a public hearing for amendments to the Park and Recreation Ordinance, Chapter 11. So I'm going to move along to that page. Be Be it resolved, the town council approves resolution 091322-4. Be it resolved, the town council calls for a public hearing regarding additional amendments to the proposed Parks and Recreation ordinance to be reviewed and approved by Ordinance Review Committee prior to the October 11, 2022 council regular meeting. And be it further resolved that said public hearing will be held on Tuesday, October 11, 2022 at 7 p.m. and the town manager shall cause a notice of said public hearing to be posted and published according to law. And be it further resolved that the date, time, and place of any postponements thereof shall be determined by the town manager with the approval of the chairman of the council. There's the motion. Thank you, Mr. Talbot. We have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor signify. Opposed? Motion carries. We have a public hearing coming up on the 11th. We now move to the acceptance and appropriation of $15,520.30 from the National Opioid Settlement Payment to a special revenue fund for the purpose of opioid prevention and treatment programs. Ms. Pavano.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 091322-5. Be it resolved that the town council accepts and appropriates $15,520.30 from the National Opioid Settlement to a special revenue fund for the purpose of opioid prevention and treatment programs.
We have a motion before us. May I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Veliver. Discussion.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. There are many parts to this. This program will expand training for first responders, schools, communities, and support groups, provide education to school-based and youth-focused programs on a high school level, and utilize local media outlets and radio and so forth. So it's a very good program for something that is very serious, and I'm very glad that we did receive this money. I'm sure that it will be put to good use. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Pavano. Any staff embellishment or anything? I know Sandy's done a great job explaining it all.
Yeah, only just to say that as the memo indicates, Michelle Picarillo is sort of taking the lead on this, but she does reference coordination with, of course, the police department, fire department, Chespercott, Cheshire Public Schools, library, et al. So we can, she's outlined a very ambitious program here and a variety of uses. And just as a note, as I know the council's aware, it is a contingent or requirement of the funding from these settlements that we do use it to combat the opioid epidemic in a variety of ways. So it's staff's opinion that this program is very much consistent with that mandate. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Now we have to vote on this. So all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Funds accepted. Thank you. We now move to E, which is acceptance and appropriation of $90,000 awarded to DECD's Brownfield Area-Wide Revitalization Planning Grant Program for the West Main Street District and appropriation of town's match. Ms. Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution 091322-6. Be it resolved that the Town Council accepts and appropriates the Town of Cheshire's Brownfield Planning Grant Award in the amount of $90,000. And be it further resolved that the Town Council appropriates $10,000 from the capital planning account for the town's matching obligation, and be it further resolved that the Town Council authorizes Town Manager Sean M. Kimball to execute any and all documentation for said grant.
We have a motion. Thank you, Mr. Jinks, for the second. Discussion.
Yes, and Sean, you can add to this, but this is the grant that we referenced earlier when the Ball and Socket people were here. And as part of the conditions of the grant that they've been awarded, the town was required to appropriate the money. So we are appropriating that from our capital planning account so that we can jointly work on the development of that parking lot. Sean, is there anything else that you need to add?
Only just to say, again, we're very excited about this, and thank you to Andrew Martelli for being our lead grant writer, obviously, on this project, also with input from Mike Glidden, our town planner. But we're very excited about this. I know the council is very aware, as we've discussed this a few times, but we're excited to receive the funds. This will enable us to hire a consultant to develop a flexible code for the West Main Street area in and around, again, the Brownfield site that is the ball and socket property, but up and down there to make some site-specific code language that we think will really foster the right development there in that area targeted. And I know it's been a longstanding goal of the town council to get right, and we're committed to doing that. So we're really excited to receive the 90,000. I think the 10,000 match where the town is well spent. And again, we have available funds in our capital planning account. So that would be the staff recommendation.
Any questions for Sean? Yes, John.
So I think this is wonderful, and I think it's great. There's been momentum there, and you get a sense of what the opportunity is, so the consultant can really build off of that with really some tangible suggestions. What part of this process will come back to the council? I'm very interested in making sure that we spend this money wisely and we get a result that provides effective recommendations consistent with the view of our view of the long-term challenges and opportunities in that area. Will it come back with a scope of work that we're going to ask the consultants to follow before we go out and hire consultants? Will the consultants come back and present anything to the council? I'm asking the question because I'd like to just have some sense of that we get what we're hoping to get here.
There are some details. I'll have Arnett fill you in with a little more of the background there that I know she had a communication with. Unfortunately, Andrew Martelli couldn't be here tonight, so Arnett's going to pinch in a
Planning
little
grant
bit.
it could be a lot of different things if we're not.
There are some
we're not
approval
specific.
requirements along the way, but I'm sure Arnett can handle that.
So Andrew was kind enough to share the information with me and trust me with it. So I was honored for him to do that. The RFP for the consultant will be drafted by staff, Mr. Martelli and Mr. Glidden. The DECD will need to approve the RFP. They have very specific guidelines for the RFP. It's expected to be issued in November, and we'll have 2 years to spend the money. At the time that the consultant is hired, I am sure that if the council would like to provide input and statements to that consultant as they do their research, we can absolutely do that. And of course, the consultant's report would absolutely be presented to the council.
I'm interested in seeing information before it gets to a report. I don't know if the RFP could be distributed to the council for consideration before it goes out. I just want to see what we're asking the consultant to do here. And I don't know if that's protocol or not, so I'm asking the question here, but that's my objective would be to get ahead of the end result so that we get an outcome that meets what we thought we were going to get over here for the money. That's all.
And just to clarify, this isn't just specific for the parking lot at Ball and Socket. It's all of West Main Street parking.
It's the entire
So we're going to be
area.
looking at other areas where there could be parking plans for the future. Okay,
Type of development. Yeah.
right.
Part is land use and ways to initiate alternative land uses and everything. So I just.
And I think the important element of all of this is part of planning. And there's that great divide between planning and zoning and the town council. So to John's point, the fact that the intent of the council be recognized and understood is really critical in the pre-advertising of the RFP or whatever it might be. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that's an important protocol because once you start talking about rejiggering this, that, and the other thing in an area or whatever's recommended, it suddenly, I believe, falls out of our hands. But there may be areas of interference. Jeff, you could perhaps address that at the time or now. I don't know, but we have to work hand in glove on it, I would think, is what it comes down to. And our planner obviously must be aware of that.
Absolutely. And as part of that, we will be sure to also share with council the requirements that DECD has for the RFP, so you'll have a clear understanding of that.
Okay, that's perfect. Okay, we'd also like an explanation by the next meeting as to why why you had to take the place of Mr. Martelli. But we can wait. We can wait.
Part of my job.
That's right. Good job. So thank you for that. Okay, so I guess we've talked this, so it's time to vote on it, right? Okay, so all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, next we move to the approval of budget transfers for FY 21-22. Mr. Bowery.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's time to close out fiscal year 22 and balance all the books and the accounts. So be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 091322-7. Be it resolved that the town council approves the budget transfers as presented and attached for the fiscal year 22 general operating budget.
Thank you. We have a motion, Second. Mr. Second, who's the, Mr. Veliber? Mr. Second. Thank you.
Discussion.
You want to do this, Jim, or should this Dave steal your thunder?
There's about $118,000 worth of transfers. Half the normal amount is three main items. Inspection department, we got a lot going on in town, so a little bit more money there. So secretarial services and some emergency services, $27,000, I think, for that. So just small amounts, actually, in the $100 million budget. So it's very good.
Once
very
again,
tight ship. You guys.
That's
are in.
right. You guys are on. Your eyes are on it all the time.
It is worth noting that the 118,000 is less than the 125,000 we actually have for contingency each year. That isn't always true each year, but that was, as the number is smaller and lined up with that in terms of any departmental budget line overages. But Jim, I don't know if you're.
No, I really don't have too much to add to that. These were relatively small amounts. This is kind of small potatoes from what we've seen in past years. Really underlying reasons were, the volume of the activity in the departments, especially the building department. And we had a few departments, as you know, we've had some retirements this year where we had some turnover. So there might have been a little bit of overtime or some accommodations to consultants to bridge us in those busy departments. A lot of it was building department. So they had a banner year and continue to be pretty busy.
Very good. Thank you, Jim.
Yep.
So I guess we're ready to accept this awful change. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thanks. We move to G, which is the amendment of $276,000 to the FY 2021-2022 Water Pollution Control Department operating budget, subject of a public hearing earlier today. Mr. Bowery.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 091322-8. Be it resolved that the town council amends the total appropriation for fiscal year 22 Water Pollution Control Department operating expenditure budget from $4,149,648 to $4,425,648 as detailed on the attached summary, and be it resolved that the revenue to support this increase will come from $276,000 appropriation from fiscal year 22 Water Pollution Control Department operating budget fund equity balance. Second.
We have a motion. We have a second from Mr. Walsh. Thank you. Discussion?
Just briefly,
Explained.
we've been talking for months about the need to keep our water pollution control plant running in the best possible shape. It's critical to our operations. It's critical to our health and safety. And this was well-spent funds to keep it running smoothly the last fiscal year. And we had the available funds in their fund equity. Still leaves a significant fund equity balance for them.
Mr. Bowery, any further questions or discussion? Or okay, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. We move to H, the approval of the town of Cheshire to join the CT Coalition for Sustainable Materials Management. A new word for junk.
Be it resolved that the town council approves resolution number 091322-9. Be it resolved that the town council approves and supports the town of Cheshire's participation in the Connecticut Coalition for Sustainable Materials Management as recommended by the Solid Waste Committee.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. That was Mr. Veliber. Thank you for that. Mr. Walsh.
Thank you. This was something that was brought up during our solid waste meeting. It's a group that was formed by the Connecticut Deep to bring a lot of municipalities together to discuss different sustainable ideas. I think over 70 municipalities are members so far, probably more than that now. And they meet quarterly, and they have a lot of different meetings about different ways for recycling, composting, a lot of different things like what Fiona had discussed earlier. So I think it's something that is well worth us being a member of, and could help us with a lot of different ideas to hopefully someday get to that silver level for a sustainable Connecticut.
Mr. Walsh, just to expand on that a little bit, so everyone knows at home, we know what sort of a pickle we're in the state of Connecticut. And that's why 70 communities are getting involved in alternative ways of taking care of waste, because we've got plants closing, we've got this and that. It already goes on train cars and trucks to Ohio and where else. So it's a big deal. And so being able to do this is another way to keep our ears open with ideas.
Yeah, you're correct on that. I mean, we've had this discussion for a couple of years now in our solid waste about with the tipping fees going up so much, and we don't know where the future is going to be in the next few years. There's a large plant supposed to be going to be closed up in the Hartford area. We don't currently use that plant, but it will affect all of us. And I think the more we can recycle and compost, the better it is for us as a community, because it'll save us money in the long run and help the environment. So I think it's important.
Any questions? Mr. Jenks.
Yeah, I just wanted to say real quickly that it's encouraging to see how much the towns that have already been involved, how much discussion there has been, and all the different tactics and processes and things that are kind of emerging as how we address this problem that we're going to be facing. So, and this being a part of this group is going to help us as a community tap into a lot of that thought that's happening, a lot of that, like I said, a lot of the process that are kind of emerging. So, it's definitely a good thing for us to do, and I hope you guys will support it.
Thank you very much. And it has been an interesting discussion when it was brought up in the Solid Waste Committee, just to learn about this and learn more about what this group is doing and how it is growing. And I think it does provide a good forum for us to, get involved with other municipalities and see what they're doing. But one of the things, if in case people are concerned, there's no cost to the municipality to join this. So it's a benefit to that. And Noel, what was the expression they used as to our level of involvement of what we have to do? Was it? Right. Yeah. So it's not. It's going to be an opportunity for. It's one of these ones where you will make of it what we can and what was available, but there's at no cost to the town. So I think it's a sort of a win-win for everybody. So
Of course, we should be reminded that's what the bureaucrats always want. So they're getting what they want. But I do believe, and I would like to know, what member of town staff is actually the municipal agent to such a group, or are you just reading minutes? What level of involvement will the town actually have? I mean, it matters nothing if no one bothers to go.
So far, our esteemed management specialist has been kind enough to attend the first virtual meeting. But again, there's obviously coordination with Public Works and really our entire office as again, this is an initiative, as you've all said, as Mr. Walsh said, that is very important for the future of the community and the future of our solid waste management system here in town. So we're all paying close attention. Noelle's done a great job summarizing the first meeting and may well be asked. She did such a good job, she might have to attend the next one too. So.
Okay. Well, thanks for that. That kind of rounds the circle on the conversation, I think. And with that, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. We move along to H, which is the approval of the town of Cheshire to join the We already did that. I hadn't circled it yet. Okay. We go to I instead, which is the approval of purchase agreement terms for 1511 Byam Road. Ms. Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution 091322-10. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves the transfer of title for the fire station property at 1511 Byam Road from the Cheshire Heights Volunteer Company Incorporated to the Town of Cheshire for the consideration of $1 pursuant to the approval of the purchase agreement by the town attorney.
The motion. Thank you, Mr. Walsh, for your second. Discussion.
This is the firehouse that's located on Fire Road and was originally purchased or built, I believe, by the Cheshire Heights Volunteer Fire Company. The town has been leasing this property for 30 years, I believe, and it's time to renew that lease, and the volunteer company has changed and would like the town to assume the ownership of this, and that's what this is all about. Supported by the fire chief, wanting us to own this piece.
And to support all of that, we've been doing all the maintenance for 30 years
Right,
and
we've been
basically
taking care of it. I
assuming
mean, it's
all
been
of
our
the
property.
costs associated with it. So this is more or less a legal transfer, de facto right, I suppose, to take advantage of. should we choose.
budget?
I was going to say, there's at least, we have $1 in the budget.
You're still looking.
Right. Because it does, that's well below referendum limits.
Yeah.
Right. That dollar never goes anywhere, right? That symbolic dollar, that's just, you got to do something, so you do $1.
Yeah.
You probably give it to the clerk. It's in petty cash. Gotcha. Okay. Any further discussion before we call for vote? Okay. Call for vote then. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Now we move to Town Manager Report and Communications. Thank you, Sean.
All right.
Stand in for your report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And in addition to the monthly reports that you have from Public Safety and other departments, I would direct your attention to the Town Manager's report before you. As we have over the last 2.5 years, I'll start with some COVID-19 pandemic data. I would just direct your attention to the graph there, and as you're seeing, there's some serious fluctuation in the local data. I've at this point deduced that's just because we are down to, as you'll see, 297 actual tests in the state system over the last 7 days is just such a small number, right? As we can imagine, at-home tests and folks not needing an official test maybe at a pharmacy or another facility that gets reported to the state. So the numbers are much lower in terms of number of tests, which means you have a lot more fluctuation in what we were always tracking as our positivity rate locally. So you will see, and I know we all know anecdotally, COVID is still around. It does seem to kind of spike in these sort of week by week basis. We all kind of know friends and family that seem to get it and it runs through. And then, so again, no mystery that it's still out there and still at relatively elevated levels, I would say. But as you see there in the graph, it's really hard to kind of deduce anything else from the data we're able to get at this point from the state. So don't be surprised if this may be one of the last times you'll see that particular graph. I know you'll miss it from the last 2.5 years of having that in the town manager's report, but we'll see if anything changes. And obviously we continue to monitor it and take very seriously the COVID pandemic. So moving on to the Cheshire Fall Festival, just a quick thank you to the Chamber of Commerce, Town Council, all town departments, and all the participants, vendors, and visitors who attended the 34th Annual Cheshire Fall Festival last weekend. The weather, again, for the second year in a row, was wonderful, and with the great music activities and a really nice fireworks show. My kids really, really enjoyed it, so it was great. Again, just a reminder, Parks and Recreation's Fall 22 brochure is available online. Moving forward, I know we referenced earlier, but Planning and Zoning did approve planning the Bartlett South project last night, but other recreation projects that are ongoing, the Mixville Park John G. Martin Outdoor Education Building is scheduled to break ground in the end of September, or in the middle to the end of September, so just in the next few weeks. Pickleball Lights project is on track for a early November installation, which is great news. It's been moving ahead very nicely. We are recruiting for Public Works Director of Public Works and Engineering. That recruitment closed yesterday, so applications are being reviewed as we speak, and panel interviews are being scheduled to occur within the next couple of weeks. You'll see the road paving schedule that's fully available on the homepage of our website for all upcoming roads to be chip sealed and paved beginning later this month. Moving on, household hazardous waste collection. An important note, again, in addition to the wonderful New Haven Has Waste facility that is and remains open on Saturdays, 9 a.m. to noon until October 29th. But there is, just a little more conveniently, a Meriden satellite collection on September 24th that Cheshire residents are also eligible to register for. So that's September 24th, 9 a.m. to 12 noon at 226 Evansville Avenue in Meriden. Again, the Scarecrow Contest, 2022 Scarecrow Contest will be coming back to Cheshire. You'll see a link there through Park and Rec to officially register your Scarecrow. We encourage residents and businesses to participate. Just a brief economic development update. IAT Insurance completed their renovations at 1157 Highland Avenue. The bar planning grant we referenced earlier was rewarded by the state. The learning experience, a 10,000 square foot daycare, was approved at 435 Highland Avenue. Building demolition is complete at 306 Highland Avenue. That's the location of a new 10,000 square foot dentist office. And the Sakana Asian Bistro is wrapping up their construction and their final CO permits have been filed. And a few upcoming meetings. Again, we referenced earlier, a selection committee following the recruitment for the school building committee members will be meeting on October 4th to begin reviewing the applicants. Other than that, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Anybody have a question for Sean? Mr. Talbot.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sean, in whatever form you deem appropriate, could we get a blight ordinance update for October?
Absolutely. Yeah, we can get you that beforehand. There's actually been a little bit of activity just this week, so we'll send something around to the council first.
Thank you.
Ms. Bavali.
I wanted to ask you, what is the progress of security at the pool?
So there was a walkthrough last week with the consultant for the video cameras that were being proposed and which locations would be best and which would fit within the available budget. So I don't have a proposal that's come to my desk yet, but I know they're still vetting it out and coming up with a solution.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sean, I had a quick question. It has to do with work that the council was aware of and was approved, has to do with the paving projects. But I know we're going to chip sealing on roads that are much closer to homes than maybe some of the other roads we've done in the past. I mean, and we're aware of this, I realize that. But I guess my question is, have you had any feedback noticeable, or at least could you get back to us on any reports of it? I I speak to Avon Boulevard in particular, tons of houses on that street. I haven't had any complaints registered with me at all. So I'm not speaking of that, but I feel the process that's being done is clearly better than the old days. I mean, there's no question all that layer of stone has to make a big difference. But I didn't know if, if we're beginning to stray into an area that, we need to take a closer look at, or if this is part of the plan. This is for a longer term discussion, but something I wanted to put on your radar, so we know where we're going with it. So unless I'm the only one who thinks that way, it's just something I've been thinking about.
Sure. Yeah. I can definitely get more information. I know my office hasn't received any recent complaints, but I know as a topic, it's something obviously we've discussed during budget deliberations in terms of the chip sealing treatment is certainly more economical, but has some trade-offs certainly with respect to maybe people's expectation of a new road and whatnot. So certainly I can have the Public Works folks provide an update if they've received any other feedback similar that would be helpful and informative.
Okay. And then another, I guess this could have waited for council communications, but I'll bring it up now simply because the council, obviously went through the motions of dealing with the voter districts and the rearrangements of lines and stuff like that. I did have a communication today from a resident in the Chapman area, Wolf Hill Road, and really just registering complaint about how they're not a party to the process. How's it go about? I know how it goes about. I need to get back to this person, but again, we've sort of had to sign on to something that's inconvenient for a handful of households, and these are all legitimate questions. And I just think it begs the importance too of reminding people in the district once again. I know we talked about that at our last meeting, but we have to have that have to go to polling places this November know exactly where to go and not be frustrated. And I believe you told us, or we were aware, out a second time through the registrar's office, correct?
Yes, we're working with the registrar's office to have that go out and make sure it goes to the right people and that the language is clear.
Right. Okay. So I realize a lot of this is out of our control. I recognize that. We're working with a very small piece of this by the time it's dealt with the legislature. So, but there again, it's a comment I have to address, and I know you guys addressed it in ordinance.
Yeah, I mean, I thank you for bringing that up, because I know that is a concern, and I wonder, because I know there were some people through the primary process who, even though they had received a notice, in the mail, it didn't really sink into them. They just got a thing like it says, oh, here's your thing, districts have changed, go check out this website to find out, where your polling place is. But for most people who had been voting at the same polling place for decades, it didn't. The one thing that would have been nice, or maybe, that didn't sink in was, hey, you have now been changed from this district to this district. So it was specific to, some people concerned. Right. It would have been nice to get something for I can't remember, it's like 1,200 or 1,400 households that actually changed districts, instead of just getting a generic, hey, go check out your new, go check out the polling districts, to have something specifically say, you have specifically been changed to this. Because I think if you just send them something out, they're going to assume that they're going to the same polling place they've always gone to. And it's going to be a nightmare come November when people start showing up at the high school, and now they've been moved to Norton, where they're going to Dodd, and they should have been going to, somewhere else. So I think whatever notice, I think, the generic notice that went out before the primary, I think needs to be more specific or more targeted to the people who actually have been changed from either District 1 to District 4, or 4 to 2, or 3 to whatever, however it goes. They need to be sort of more specifically told, hey, you actually changed.
Do you know what we budgeted for that by any chance? I know we did provide some budgeting.
We did budget for the two mailings that were already done. There was not any funds budget. There were not funds budgeted for a third mailing, but we'll make it work. It's not a huge number of people.
No, but to Dave's point, could it be targeted to those 1,200 voters where it actually says your place is now so-and-so?
Yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah,
Good.
we'll
So that's the
reiterate that to the registrars, that is the request.
Okay,
Expectation.
go ahead.
We in the ordinance committee, we knew this was going to be an issue. We tried all different ways of that little notch where Country Club Road and to Creamery Road and Wolf Hill. We knew that was going to be an issue. We tried everything to see if we can try to keep that. I think it was in the first district. But what we were told by the registrars is you'd have to get a separate voting machine. You'd have to get separate ballots. You'd have to get almost one person just to man that. It would be a very high cost to us to do that, and it would still be a confusing process. There's about 400 or so voters in that little notch that's cut out. Unfortunately, which I'm disappointed at, is they have to go all the way to Art's Place from there, when they could live next door to Chapman. But, like everybody said, the state did it first, and we couldn't change it after that. Once the state has set their parameters, we were very limited to what we could do. And we tried every way, and it got to the point where it just wasn't gonna work for us. And I feel for those people because, you know, I understand they like to walk to go and vote, and now they have to get in their car, drive through the voting traffic that's coming there, and go all the way over to Art's Place to vote. So I do feel bad for that, but I mean, it's out of our hands.
Well, thanks for hearing us out on that. And I guess we don't have any more questions at the moment for you, Sean. Okay. Terrific. So we have our other status reports, you know, police and fire. And now we go down to referral. I have a referral to ordinance for policy regarding non-municipal signage on town property. And a referral of the sidewalk policy to the planning committee. Do you want to speak to that at all now, Jim? I know there's a survey you had mentioned. Is that essentially what's going to be going on? You're going to be examining that survey as a member of that committee? It's going to planning?
The Public Safety Commission worked through a policy. So we wanted to have planning have a look at that and make whatever recommendations may be necessary before we move forward to the council.
Thank you. I asked specifically for you because I knew it was born out of that survey.
Right.
But you have been a very good steward of that group as a liaison. So with that, we'll now move to miscellaneous, which is going to be banned but repeated a little later. Okay. I was going to get to that, right? Chairman's reports, the general chairman's reports. There we go. I skipped that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's good. It's good to have someone to nudge me. So I'll start on my left with Ms. Pavano.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Planning did meet. We will be going out to, we're legal counsel will have interviews in October. Right now, the applications are being reviewed for references and so forth. So, and then we will be meeting again very soon because we have other items on planning, but we will stay, we'll let you know
Okay,
when we meet.
very good. Mr. Bellarmine.
Thank you. Appreciate some new referrals to ordinance. Always good.
Yeah, you guys haven't been too busy.
Right. We will have a park and rec ordinance that'll be coming changes, but now with some additions. We'll be having a meeting soon, obviously, to start picking up some of that fair rent commission, as well as an overall municipal sign ordinance be coming up. So we'll be having some meetings.
Well, in anticipation of that meeting you're going to have, I think it's imperative that staff cobble together whatever existing, language we have on signage, whatever's pertinent that comes out of one group that's charged with something. I think it needs to include schools, whatever policies exist there. If none, I think this has to be a holistic look. Maybe we can't do it in one big swipe of the apple, but I think that's important that all come together.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Nichols.
No report.
Okay. Mr. Wolf.
Besides joining the Connecticut Coalition for Sustainable Materials Management, we did talk about bulk trash pickup. We're going to continue that conversation at our next meeting. We throwing around a lot of different ideas of how to best manage that. Also, we did have a long discussion about the NIP program, and I believe our second check should be arriving sometime in October. And we'd have an idea of how much money we would have in that fund, and we'll make some decisions on how we can best utilize that money to do the things that the state has authorized us to do with that money. So we're moving forward.
Thank you much. Mr. Corey.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the Budget Committee, when we met earlier, continued our discussion that we began during the budget season of how we could help
The senior tax credit.
The senior tax credit program be expanded. How it could help expand, that's the word, thank you. To include more people and more seniors. And we're looking at some drafts of some information that'll come to us in a couple of weeks, and then we'll get it out to the whole council to get your thoughts as to where you might be interested in that. But some of it would be a larger dollar amount of a credit, and some of it would be to expand the income levels of those who would be qualified.
Gotcha. Okay. You're all set?
Just very briefly, there's no update from the Budget Committee, but we will be in the near future. I think Mr. Jesscott's going to be probably getting together with Mr. Masiano and giving us some updates on some of the protocols that they're going to document for ensuring that the future audits the procedures are documented.
Right.
Well, hopefully we'll get that to you soon.
Very good. Very good. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. So with that, we move along to legitimately miscellaneous, and we'll follow that because there's never any miscellaneous. We're too organized. We're going to go to liaison reports. I'll start on my left.
No report. Library board meets Monday. Go there next.
Excellent. Mr. Walsh?
No report.
Mr. Bowery?
Report, sir.
Mr. Malone?
I do have a brief report from the Environment Commission, and there's an attachment to our package, which is a memorandum dated August 31st from the commission. The commission's been working really hard in a number of areas, but specifically they've been identifying town properties, town parks, and open space to tour and kind of document the conditions and suggestions for improvements. And we'll eventually come up with a comprehensive list for the council to look at. I think they've probably fieldwalked 5 or 6 open space parcels already. This memorandum documents the findings for the work on the what would be called the Moran property, which is the Fen Road property that was acquired, with specific recommendations as to things that should be incorporated, such as some cleanup. There's still, for instance, plastic pipes on the property that stick out of the ground that haven't been removed. Those kind of things, they're saying, look, we want to bring attention to those, get those things taken care of. Talking about accessibility between the Moran property and the adjacent Fen Road, the adjacent larger De Dominicus open space with possibly a bridge in the future. So they just wanted to let the council know the work they've been doing. This memorandum kind of gives you an example of what they've been doing. It's been excellent work. I do want to also acknowledge Mike Glidden, who's been supporting Chairman Buell on his efforts there, and really working hard, going to a lot of these field walks and supporting this commission at a very high level. And he's just done really good work there, and we really appreciate that. So that's all. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but I think the new members and the former members have worked together quite well.
Yes, great report.
Yeah, I just want to comment. Thank you for that report. Thank you for the Park and Rec or the Public Safety. You've been giving us updates and very clear updates from your committees. Well, the sustainable report tonight, that's what we should be having from all of our commission groups. So we as liaisons, I think, should be instrumental in encouraging the commissions that we work with to come up with those updates, because it's helpful for us to know what those committees have on their future plates or they're thinking about. That keeps us ahead of the game. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I think even to advance Sylvia's comments, I think this is a great template for a report that I believe we should be requesting of our commissions semi-annually. I think to have a 6-month update, a lot of times there's not a liaison report because our colleagues up here are busy doing their own business, and it can be complicated. It's a credit to all of you that make so many of these meetings, but nonetheless, I think it would put them not on notice, but also willing partners in, giving us the reportage that we really need to see so that we can respond, react, and be better caregivers of the town. So I think if we could institute that in some way, I'm not sure how we go about it, whether it be a request from me specifically, that goes out to all the boards, particularly environment is a great one. You've got a number of them. I think that we could benefit from some of that. So we'll talk about that and we'll figure that all out. But this was an excellent report. Happy to have read it. Mr. Talbot?
No.
Okay. Jenks?
I actually have no report. Let the sustainability team speak for itself, I guess.
There you go. There you go. Okay, do we have any appointments to boards and commissions tonight?
Yes, actually, we do. And it just came through and I had it. I do have one nomination tonight. I would like the council to confirm or appoint Jessica. I can't pronounce the last name, but it's spelled Fuestel. Fustel, perhaps. I'm sorry if I'm wrong. To the, I can't read this, to the Beautification Committee. It's a new appointment. It's replacing, last name is Kakasi. It's a present day till January 31st, 2024. She is a Republican.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler. Got any?
I will too. No, I don't have any of my own.
Okay, there we go. Okay. I just want to say one thing. That case name's been on there for a long, long time, and she's volunteered for the town of Cheshire for a long, long time.
Okay.
And I just want to thank her personally. I've known her over the years, but that's terrific. She's
And
been
how
there
do
a
you
long
pronounce
time.
her name?
Case.
Okay, Case, yes. And she's leaving the committee now,
Yeah.
but yes, okay, right, okay.
At any rate, just wanted to take that.
And just as an aside, there are other spots on that committee available. So if any of you watching have any interest in being on the beautification committee, Peter or I are absolutely willing to hear your interest. But this fills one of the three that are open.
Terrific. Okay, so we now have to vote on that appointment. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Welcome aboard. Okay, we now go to the town attorney report and communications. Jeff, you have any
No report quite yet. You'll hear from me shortly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. We know we're going into super secret on that one, I guess, so, okay, very good. Council communications, I did indicate during the town manager's report that I had a communication from a constituent, based on her concerns about the voting districts. We've discussed it at length. I can assure you I will respond to her. Obviously, there was also a number of communications which had come to me specifically, but other members of town staff regarding the sign situation that we'll be delving into. So those were other communications we had. So beyond that, I haven't had any. I don't know if members here want to share anything or anything like that. So it's essentially what's gone on. There's no more miscellaneous to talk about. So we now have items for executive session. We're going to go into executive session. I will seek a motion basically to cover contract negotiations, land acquisition, and pending litigation. I don't know if we have everyone going in for every moment or if we're going to preferably start with someone so they can leave, and how do you want to handle that?
Yep, we're not going to need Mr. Jascott, but Mr. Zullo and Mr. Nawatney will be joining us for the first item, and then they'll be excused.
Okay. So we have a motion. Thank you. Mr. Talbot, we have a second. Mr. Belliver, thank you. All those in favor will go into executive session. As soon as everyone is ready, room is cleared, cameras are off, and everything else. There'll be no action taken after executive session. So.
Noel?